Hello, and welcome to Stories and Strategies from Converting to TypeScript with me, Josh Goldberg. To start off, hi, I'm from upstate New York. I'm a front-end developer on the web platform team at Codecademy, previously Microsoft, and I'm a cat dad. My wife and I have a few cats. They're very cute. All the stuff in this presentation is available on my website under the slides link under this talk at joshuakgoldberg.com. This presentation does include several looped animated images. If those are distracting for you, I would recommend viewing them in PowerPoint, which allows you to pause them. As for an agenda, first we're going to talk about Codecademy in 2019 before we made the jump to TypeScript, how we made that decision to jump to TypeScript, some of the techniques we used for knowledge sharing on the team, technical details of what we did in order to make that jump, and then some of the learnings we got at the end throughout the process, things that you might be able to use in your conversions, I hope. Good stuff. Starting off, where was Codecademy before TypeScript? Let's take a step back all the way to early 2019, a simpler time. We had a main front-end app, which at the time consisted of about 2,000 files of React and Redux, a few more files in a separate design system, which itself was converted to TypeScript as a proof of concept. And most team members had really only vaguely heard of TypeScript. It wasn't a big topic or knowledge point on the team. The team itself was pretty small. It was only around 20, maybe 30 engineers at tops. Most of the people didn't really have TypeScript experience, and there was, as with any engineering team, ongoing work around features and bug fixes. So how did we do it? How did we make that switch to TypeScript? First, we made the decision that we wanted to do it in the first place. And when there's a will, there's a way, but there has to be a will. Any architectural shift should have the informed support of its constituents. I think a lot of people, especially those who are new to a team, make the mistake of immediately trying to jump to conclusions and push an agenda, send out proposals, which a lot of the time is a mistake, just to do that immediately. It's a good idea to soak in the experiences of being a developer on the team, talk to people, get a feel for what the real issues are, and then use that to inform your decision-making around what to push and how. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to devalue coming into a team with a fresh perspective and trying to get people to understand and listen to that perspective. That's great, that's commendable. Teams should absolutely be open to you coming in with fresh ideas, but those fresh ideas and perspectives are much more likely to succeed if you validate them with those around you, if you can convince people of their validity. So don't be a brat. Definitely talk to people before trying to push them to do things. If you do want to push people to do things, I highly recommend make some kind of hype train for it. If there's some switch you want to make, say to TypeScript, you want people to feel it. They should be excited in their bones. This is awesome. This is going to make my life happier and better. The code is going to work. It's going to be awesome. I want to do it. That's the feeling you want to encapsulate with perhaps some of the larger decisions you want to push on the team. Part of the way we did it was by encouraging people to think about how TypeScript helps their existing goals. Always a good idea. My favorite image from the evangelism phase of our TypeScript conversion, the very beginning, was us advertising it as part of the bug acquisition funnel, as we call it, or the anti-funnel. Not drawn to scale, as there is no reliable scale here. No one part of this, prior thought or peer review or whatnot, can truly prevent all bugs, but put together, they can help reduce bugs and crashes on the site. That was a big part of the team charter at the beginning of 2019, something we really wanted to get better at, stability, not having bugs or annoying quirks. And TypeScript was really easy to maneuver into that because that's one of the core features of TypeScript, that it helps you find bugs early. So once we decided to do the thing, we needed to ramp up the team, knowledge sharing, as they call it. This was especially valuable even before we made the decision, where we wanted people to understand what it meant so they could meaningfully contribute to the conversation. We identified roughly two rough archetypes of people on the team. First off, you had area experts, someone like me who's already really excited about and knowledgeable with TypeScript, I may say so. They're the type of person you can use to clue the team into the technology, to introduce best practices, explain it to others, set up the right learning materials. They're the person who can save the team from themselves, in that you can stop the team from making the really obvious pitfalls that you know from having done it before. Also useful and very valuable on the team are cheerleaders, people who might not have as much experience with, say, TypeScript, but are still really excited about it and want to push it and agree with the push. These are the people who can act as guinea pigs, who will try it out, your early adopters or beta testers, as they call them. They can help spread it among the team much more effectively than you, because there are a lot of them, oftentimes, if the decision is exciting and new. So I recommend try to get at least 1 or 2 cheerleaders per team area so they can spread the joy of the new thing amongst the team area. At least in Codecademy and many other companies I've seen, product teams tend to talk with each other a lot. So if you can get at least 1 person into that mix, that's very useful for introducing a new technology. For area experts, at least 2 is useful, because if you only have 1, they don't have a peer who can really validate what they're doing, at least from prior experience. So it's useful to have at least 2 who can bounce ideas off each other. Part of the knowledge sharing for us, once we identified area owners and cheerleaders, was internal presentations, because no one does anything until there's a talk explaining the general thing, the spirit of the team's movement to it. We held 2 brown bags, which your team might call chalk talks or lunch talks or some such presentations. The first was static analysis in JavaScript. It was a general introduction to the concept of taking a look at the file without running it and figuring out what's wrong or right with it. It honestly didn't even talk about TypeScript that much. It was mostly about existing tools we already were using to get people into the right frame of mind, prettier and ESLints mostly. After that, we had the really exciting talk, the one I was happy about, TypeScript, which was specifically about what TypeScript is and what the features it provides that we would use would look like. We also participated in the team's existing lightning talks, which were a series of a few people talking every week about 5 minutes of whatever, random topics. These were particularly useful for the more esoteric topics for TypeScript that might be interesting or cute, but not entirely useful for most people trying to decide to use it or onboard it. Presentations are really useful because people can look at them after the fact, kind of rehearse and go over this stuff. The most valuable, I think, individual interactions we had were pairing with people, because no one really learns anything until they're forced to do it, at least in my experiences. An overgeneralization, perhaps, was certainly a useful one. At least for me, if I haven't written a language yet, or if I haven't used a framework, I don't really understand it until I do. So I scheduled at least 1 pairing session with every front-end focused member of the team, which was at the time about a dozen, a little more. These sessions, we would pair off who was coding in TypeScript and who was supervising. It did not scale. If I were to try to do that now that the team's above 50, 60, that would be really painful. But at the time, it was really useful. And I think it was one of the more pressing and salient ways to get people onboarded to TypeScript. Highly recommend, especially if you can scale it out with more area owners. As for the technical details, the literal code changes we made, we kept to as few as possible, and this is a strategy I would highly recommend for any TypeScript conversions. You don't want to start off with a multi-thousand file PR that converts everything under the sun. That's really easy to break and really hard to adjust for merge conflicts. So we started off with just converting the minimum infrastructure and integrations with just a few files converting to TS or TSX just to make sure it would work. This was good for a couple of reasons. To start, the initial PR was not disruptive to the team at all. We didn't have to pause deployments or anything to get it through. We also just didn't change a lot of people with it. No one was disrupted by it. We were able to wait to introduce TypeScript to people until the time was right, until we could pair with them or they were already more comfortable with the ideas. And the infrastructure, honestly, wasn't that big of a shift in this pull request. Pretty much everything we used already had a basic TypeScript inclusion, either built in or something you could get online pretty easily. Our test runner and our production builder, just in Webpack, respectively, each had a dependency on Babel for compiling code. And Babel has a really nice TypeScript preset, Babel preset TypeScript. So we just went with that and it worked magically. ESLint has TypeScript ESLint, a project that I sometimes contribute to, so I was pretty familiar with, and that also worked great. ESLint runs take a little longer for us because we bring in the type checker, and that's fine. It still all works. Amusingly, Prettier doesn't even have a configuration step that we needed to use. It just auto-magically supports TypeScript out of the box. That was my favorite thing. We didn't have to do anything for that. It was great.